All right, we're live. Hey, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, guys. So I'm just going to do a quick intro of the team, shout out my new community program, and then we'll get started with the AMA. So I'm Kate. I'm the community lead for Axelar. And joining me today for this testnet AMA, we have Christian, who is been with Axelar for about a year now. And before that has over 10 years of experience in software engineering and systems research, as well as a PhD in computer science from University of Waterloo here in Canada. We also have Sergey with us, who is the co-founder and CEO of Axelar. Before that, he was one of the founding team members at Algorand. He's also an assistant professor at the University of Waterloo, which he has taken leave for at the moment to build something a little bigger called Axelar. So very quickly before we get started, we launched the Quantum Community Program for anyone who is non-technical in tuning into the stream, which is a community-based project where we encourage submissions for things like videos, blog posts, guides, anything that you can think of to grow Axelar's knowledge base. And that'll be featured on the Axelar Academy, which is a community-run educational hub. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Sergey, I'll pass it over to you.
Hey, everyone. Great to be here. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really well. How about you?
Good. Awesome. So yeah, I think we'll just talk a little bit about the upcoming testnet release, give folks a little bit of insights of what's been going on behind the scenes on the engineering end. We'll talk about, some new features that we'll be building. Yeah, then we'll just go from there.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Yeah, on the high level, we got together as a team in Toronto for the last 10 days. And we've been just through an intense kind of engineering boot camp along the way, trying to fix up, some features, push new releases, and test a couple core functionalities of the network. And I think one of the things we're trying to do now with the Axelar network is to make sure we can actually properly upgrade the network without having to reset a lot of its state. I think for those of you that have been on the testnet for the last few months, they know that we've been just used to sort of resetting the network every time we push a new release. We're now arriving at a pretty stable state on the network itself, where we can do basic kind of flows that we would like to support through the network, basic operations. And so now we are just figuring out this upgrade path, I would say, upgrade path for basic feature releases, but also how to deal with emergencies, right? I think if there is a kind of a bug in the code and a consensus failure or whatever that ends up being, we just have to know what everybody needs to do in those cases, what the validators need to do in those cases, and how to kind of act to those scenarios appropriately. So that's something we've been working on over the last week, is going through some of these flows, training, within ourselves how to react to these things, put in the right kind of code paths in place, and things like that. Chris, do you want to add anything on this? I don't know. How was your experience, testing some of these upgrade features?
So I would say for the last year or so, we just developed the platform so rapidly that it didn't make sense to support like live updates on the fly. The testnet in the beginning was not very stable, which was intended that we wanted to go fast and break things. So in that time, it just didn't make sense to support the upgrade path, really, because it would have been so much extra work that was rapidly changing. But now, over the last couple of releases, the testnet has been pretty stable, apart from like minor bugs. And now going forward with the release and mainnet on the horizon, now is for us the time to look into the upgrade path. And yeah, during this week we've successfully done upgrades internally, and so for the next testnet, I think that we are ready to do live updates, live upgrades of the chain then.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think the upgrade path that we've talked about, it also depends on what the upgrade is, right? Like we talked internally that when we're not making changes to the consensus, right, or the underlying data structures, then the upgrades are pretty straightforward, right? Like if any upgrade is backwards compatible, we just push a new binary release or a Docker release, and the validators can just pick that up, nodes can pick that up, and going to start benefiting from it. The challenges come in is when you want to, let's say, add new functionality, right? Or fix a bug in the system, or improve how you manage your data stores, right? Then that's when you have to do kind of consensus breaking upgrades, and the path there is a little bit kind of a more complicated for both the team but also the validators. And so I think over the next week or so, as we roll out this testnet, we'll hopefully do some of these dry runs with our community. That's been I think amazing so far, right? We had 70 validators, I think, on the last testnet, like hundreds of people running nodes. How do you feel about our validators on the community?
So I think it's absolutely amazing, the support that we're getting and the communication with the validators, and just the excitement for the network is absolutely fantastic to see. And yeah, so I think that for anyone who has been working in the blockchain space, going back to the upgrades, I think it's clear that it's not as easy as where you run an app on your computer or phone and you just update it.
Not yet, at least, right?
Not yet, at least.
We
yeah.
hope to get there one day.
We really wanted to make sure that we get it right before we roll out this feature for validators to get in on it, and help them to have a better experience with the whole process.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just a huge thanks, I think, to all the validators and node participants on the testnet. You guys have been awesome just for giving us feedback, stay patient throughout this. And I think it really helped us, make our decisions as we're building the stack and building alongside with you. So thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
I think the other, big feature that we tested this week was being able to add new chains, especially like EVM chains on the fly on a live network, which it's huge, right? I think it's sort of groundbreaking in many, many ways, where kind of previously in any solution that I've seen in the past, every time you want to add support for another ecosystem, that means taking down services for days, like writing code for months, and then supporting it. And I think what we have done is really building kind of a core platform where you can come in and really type like a handful of commands and push some gateways to a new blockchain that you want to connect to, push some token contracts, ask the validators to register on that chain, and that's it. And that chain will be kind of interconnected with the Axelar ecosystem and other chains that we're previously connected with. So to me, I think that was just an amazing to see how easy it ended up being. Apart from some bugs here and there. But Chris, do you want to just go deeper and let's talk about this flow, because I think it's quite important.
Yeah, the team has done an amazing job over the last couple of weeks to lay the groundwork to so that it's so easy to add new chains there. So at this time, we are essentially in the position that any kind of EVM supported chain or Cosmos chain can be added with minimum effort from our side. We of course have to make sure that the validators are supporting it, and that the chain that we add intended to be added and like is robust and everything. So there's a lot around the actual software process, but adding it into the blockchain is really very easy. So essentially what we have to make sure is that we have validators that can support validating transactions on this new chain that we want to add, and then we need to deploy the smart contracts that are necessary. So for EVM-based chains, that is the base gateway contract, which spawns all other tokens that we create there. Then we need to install all the tokens that we want to support on that chain. And once that is done, we can essentially just have a vote from the validators to say that we want to activate this chain, and then that's it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one question that we've been getting, or I've been getting, is that folks are asking, well, could you live in a world where, there's every chain just sort of talks to each other, right? And I think that's a kind of a common question that people asking, well, can you just connect every chain with each other and call it a day? And I think, just kind of an answer to that, as a frequently been asked question, is that if we're going to end up living in a multi-chain world where there are, tens or hundreds or even thousands of different chains, pairwise connections do not scale. Like no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, if you have pairwise connections, you need to kind of n-squared number of these connections. You need to maintain them. You need to figure out kind of who's responsible for them, who's responsible, for the security model around them, right? How do developers talk and understand each different types of protocols? It's not definitely how the internet has ended up shaping with thousands of networks, and you naturally have these kind of communication hubs that are routing information more efficiently from one ecosystem to the other. In the blockchain space, it's even more critical, where you may have sort of a network that misbehaves, right, Chris? And I think we talked about this internally. It's sort of what happens if a chain that we connect all of a sudden kind of a forks, right? Even halts, right? Like stops making process. You have to make sure that then all other connections to that chain from other ecosystems are consistently representing, what happened to that state, whether or not we freeze kind of flows to that chain, or freeze flows out of that chain, or the network pauses processing requests. And I think we spend a lot of time thinking about what are the on-chain or some of the even emergencies kind of off-chain processes that have to be put in place to react to these things. And I think it is a responsibility, I think, of any interoperability protocol to think carefully about those situations and handle them well. And going through a unified sort of platform like Axelar really allows us to do this effectively, right? Because we have one ecosystem that manages 20 others, and if the source is broken, then you can just effectively kind of a pause through the governance or whatever protocols end up being on chain, kind of flows into that ecosystem until it's fixed up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going into this project, we knew that we needed to find a solution that the maintenance of the 10th supported chain is the same as for the 100th, right? So that it doesn't give more and more load to the team the more chains we attach to it. And so I think this hub architecture is definitely the way to go there. And we've seen similar things in all other kinds of areas of software development. If you have like a programming language that you compile down to machine code, you usually don't go from a specific language to a specific processor. You have like intermediate steps where you can accumulate the workload. Apart from that, we still needed to make sure that the hub doesn't become a thing where we kind of grab information from everywhere and try to pull people in to only use Axelar in the future. For people using the system, it doesn't matter if it's an end-to-end one-to-one connection between two chains or if it's going through Axelar. It's the same experience, and we really wanted to just get the right software architecture down to support this interoperability layer for any chain that we might want to support.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other big thing that you've been working on with the rest of the team are our relay and microservices, right? So for those of you that haven't participated in the testnet yet, I hope we'll be able to kind of open up more broadly to everyone soon. But for those of you that haven't, kind of currently a lot of the exercises that people have done, they transferred basic flows or assets from one ecosystem to another, and some of the steps were manually executed on the network, right? So you don't trust anybody. You don't need to trust anybody for executing those steps, right? So if you want to transfer value from whatever Cosmos ecosystem to EVM, some assets, you can just type some commands, right, or query an Axelar RPC node to submit these commands on chain and use the network to process them, and you don't have to trust it kind of for pushing transactions to the Axelar or to EVM chain, right? You can do those things yourself. But that being said, to make the user experience and the developer experience a lot better, we're building a set of relay or microservices on top of the network to just relay transactions from one network to another, right? And so you can think of it as being almost like an ISP, right? Where we take a packet that arrives in a source kind of gateway on the on the original chain, and then we have our kind of services that are helping that packet move from one network to another, right? And submit it from one server to another until it arrives, at the destination chain. So, Chris, let's talk about these microservices a little bit, because I think we spend a lot of time thinking, how do you really make them robust, right? How do you make them scalable, and again, how do you make it easier to support more integration? So, walk us through it.
So I think the new microservices layer is going to be something very exciting for the community, because for everybody who's been on the testnet so far, as you said, Sergey, there are a bunch of manual steps that you have to go through, sending several, I think right now it's 5 commands that you have to do to actually go from having your asset on one chain to seeing it in the wallet on the other chain. And we don't want to take this away. So for everybody who still wants to do everything, all the commands themselves, that will still be viable going forward. We think that for regular users, the experience will be much better if all these tedious steps that are going in between can be automated. So we are offering a new service there that relies on events that are emitted by the blockchain when you deposit your tokens into an address, for example. An event will be emitted so that we can automatically confirm that this deposit has happened. And so we react on different events in the pipeline for the blockchain to do just the next step that you would have needed to do otherwise through the command line or with a REST call. We can just do it for you now. So that means that what you will have to do in the future is hopefully just click on a button to get an address where you deposit your tokens to. You make the deposit, and then sometime later, the tokens will appear in the address that you told us where you wanted to have, so that all the steps in between are fully automated. And we needed to make sure that this is also reliable. Once again, like when this breaks down, everything can be done manually, so we're not closing off the system in any way. but still for a good user experience, this needs to be a robust layer. And so we broke out the separate steps that are needed to be done in this pipeline for asset transfers into several microservices that talk to each other through a robust message broker. And we didn't want to reinvent the wheels there, so we are using an open source message broker in RabbitMQ, which people might be familiar with. It's a very popular solution for message brokers in the open source space. And so we rely on that for the event distribution and routing, so that the correct action is taken at the correct time. And if something fails, we can react to that failure and try again, or do other steps in that case.
All right, awesome. Sounds good. Great. So I think, yeah, over the coming days, we'll be rolling out this new testnet iteration, allowing folks to participate with more exercises and play with different ecosystems. Let's maybe go to any questions if we have any.
Right, I've got a question that came in from the Discord, just asking about the validator setup for the upcoming release. If you guys want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. Essentially, for the upcoming release, the validators, will still participate in the base consensus protocol on the Axelar network, and then query RPC endpoints of other ecosystems, right? So we want to test. We've been testing, Ethereum integration for a while. We're going to start testing on a testnet other connections with, Avalanche, Polygon, a bunch of other chains we have in the pipeline. So pretty much anything that's runs, Solidity can be integrated with Axelar, assuming the gateway is compiled to the EVM bytecode, and we'll test a lot of those things. And so as a validator, you get to decide which chains you want to vote on. It's a sort of an opt-in protocol, and we'll kind of guide you through how to set that up. Yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, we know that it's not viable for all validators to support all chains, but we want to make sure that at least a good fraction of the validators are validating transactions on any given chain that we want to support, so that we are still secure in the knowledge that whatever we confirm is actually the truth on another chain.
Yeah, for sure. So that, yeah, I guess to that point, not requiring all validators to run all chains, it's actually a huge thing that allows us to sort of horizontally just scale the system, right? As we increase the number of validators on the network, some of them vote for this chain, some of them vote for that chain. You increase it more, maybe more validators are not voting for anything, so they can register for new chains and really kind of continue supporting it that way.
Yeah.
Awesome. A couple questions in the comments. All right, next stage of the testnet, I think we'll already answer that. Any plans for Solana? Great question. Definitely, interesting ecosystem for us. Definitely we have all the building blocks to integrate with it. We'll have to kind of keep you posted as we prioritize it. Do you plan to build a native exchange project or storage project? Yeah, I guess not exactly sure what do you mean by the question, but on a high level, what we are trying to do is to empower application developers to build anything that they want and just go cross-chain, right, through the Axelar network. So you want to build an exchange on Solana or Ethereum or Avalanche, go ahead and build it. You can plug in with the Axelar APIs that will expose and application layer protocols to just talk with other ecosystems, right? Compose with other chains, transfer assets back and forth for your users. yeah, from that perspective, whatever project ends up building, we want to empower it to get this distribution.
Yeah, our first priority is really to build a decentralized interoperability layer that empowers other people to build exciting stuff on chains, and so that they can communicate with other chains. So really, that is our focus right now, to build the best infrastructure that we can for other people to build exciting apps on.
Yep. Can a zero technical enthusiast help in any way? Absolutely. I think, Kate just announced the community program. Kate, do you want to talk for a minute more about it?
Yeah, sure. I see that we've gotten some questions in the chat about the community program. So the community program is designed to do just that. So anyone who's excited about Axelar, who's been following along on the project, but isn't necessarily technical or have too much blockchain knowledge or experience, like hands-on development experience, this is who the program was created for. So there's an open call for submissions right now that'll run until January 17th. And that's kind of your chance to get creative. So if that's creating, an infographic video, a whiteboard video, writing blog posts, doing translations of existing content, or, writing content about Axelar in your native language, creating graphics, creating guides, really anything, that you can imagine, we encourage you to submit. So that's, as I said, phase 1 is going to run until January 17th. And then from there, we'll take the top 300 submissions from the program, and they'll move on to phase 2. And there's going to be 4 phases. It'll run until March 3rd. So the idea is that all the content, the content that we picked for the second phase, the third phase, and the fourth phase, all of this will eventually live on the Axelar Academy, which is a community-driven knowledge hub. It's basically kind of an educational base and a one-stop shop where you're going to be able to go and learn everything, that you would ever want to know about the Axelar network. And it's also, like I said, going to showcase the top submissions from the community program. So yeah, I mean, anything that you can think of contributing, from, like I said, graphics to videos, to guides, to blog posts, to translations, we'd encourage you to kind of compile everything together. There's no need to make multiple submissions, even if you're doing kind of multiple things. Just include all of your links in the submission form. And we've got an announcement post on our Medium with all the links there. We've also got a dedicated channel in our Discord, kind of handling all the questions, clarifications. All of the links are in the pin message there. So yeah, anyone wanting to learn more about that, hop onto our Discord, and we'll get you up to speed and answer any questions there.
Yeah. And Sergey, we touched on that already, but there's another question where it's asked, what is the biggest problem of existing bridges between networks, in your opinion?
Yeah, they suck. I mean, if most of them are centralized right now, which is just a huge kind of risk for the ecosystem, right? And it introduces just a central point of failure for everybody, for all the applications that are leveraging those assets that are built through those bridges. They're bridges, right? So they're pretty much pairwise objects, and like we said, pairwise connections only can scale so far. You really need a much better optimal kind of architectures, if you want to scale to thousands of chains, and like you will need kind of hubs along the way that can connect many to many ecosystems. And finally, none of those bridges actually solve the user problems, right? Which is just being able to use your assets in applications across different ecosystems. You have to go through, multi-step process to move your asset, and then finally get to interact with the application. And so what we're building with, the Axelar network is, like we said, so right now we're focused on the network layer, and now we're starting to work on the application layer on top of it that makes it easier for the applications to compose, right? So users at the end of the day won't have to go through the bridges. I think users don't care about the bridges, right? Like users care about interesting assets and interesting applications, and they just want to interact with those things. And our goal is to enable that by building the right stack. So I don't think bridges are what users should be exposed to.
Yeah, and even projects like hubs that build ecosystems, like the Cosmos Hub or Polkadot, while they can build exciting ecosystems for themselves, they're still closed off to the majority of the blockchain space that's already there. So even those are not really the solution for interoperability.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. I guess one more question. Can projects now easily integrate Axelar into their projects in the near future? Yeah, so if you're building, a bridge front end or whatever you want, you can just go build it around the Axelar network, right? All the kind of APIs and commands and endpoints are exposed through a node, right? So just like you would do commands to generate a link address on the testnet, kind of move your funds there, and then confirm it. And Chris talked about these 5 steps that we do today. Those are can be executed manually. You can write a front end around those, right? Or you can chat with us, and we can expose some of the microservice endpoints as well, so that you can just get a link address easily. And then our microservices will take care of relaying the transaction. You can still do it yourself if you want, but you don't have to. Yeah, you can integrate your bridge on top of the network. We have multiple projects that are doing this right now. So this will be, I think, super exciting as we'll see more safety added through this process.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see people try out the microservices in the next iteration of the testnet and see what their experience is, and hopefully also help us break it and make the experience even better in the future.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, I think we need to wrap up, unless there are anything else you guys want to quickly add, Kate or Chris?
I guess on my end, so if even if we didn't get to your question in the stream, if you still have questions moving forward, we have our Discord as well as our Telegram. The Discord, there's a dedicated channel to ask all of your questions about the testnet. In the Telegram, feel free to drop any questions that you have there as well. We've got Axelar team in both of those channels that we can continue the conversation in.
Yeah, and I just thank you everybody for being excited in the project and helping us on this path. It's super great to see when you're in the daily routine of coding and seeing like who you're doing it for, and that people actually care about what we're doing. So thank you all.
Thanks everyone. Talk later. Bye.
Thanks guys.